I'm always delighted to see Luke Menzies when he turns up, especially when he's next on the agenda. So lovely to see you, Luke. Luke is our retained specialist in all areas to do with employment law, and he gives us a sharp and humorous employment law update. So with that build-up, get ready with your claps and your laughs. Okay, so here's Luke. Thank you.
Hello, boss. Hello, other boss. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. It's so exciting. I was telling my children this afternoon, because I left just after they got back from school, but I always come here, Tim, 2 people before me, just in case that was a dig. Yeah. I said, well, I'm going. They said, tell us this thing again. You drive somewhere to like a room where there are other people, and then you talk to them without them being on a screen? Yeah, that's right, it's great. Why? Well, indeed. I said, you're too young to understand. But anyway, it's great to see you all. And interesting, the links. So I have a link with Jack Strawn. I grew up in Brentwood. So there's my link. And I know Brentwood School very well. I got the opportunity to go there, actually, for the 6th form, but turned it down. But I think I probably wish I'd gone. And also have a very good link with Barking Magistrates Court as well, in that... As a young barrister, and again another link with Jack Straw, because I think he was a barrister for a couple of years before he gave it up. I was either prosecuting in Barking Mags or I was defending people, and it was a very, very bad place to be. And my very first court appearance ever was in Barking Mags, where I crashed and burned spectacularly. And he went down for at least a year, the person I was representing. Yeah, I know. It was only a parking fine, but... the other one's the best. Right, now, first of all, I am to introduce or to remind you of the SPA Employment Law Hotline, which is an absolutely super service that I'm really, really pleased to provide. And it's been several years now. And the idea is that the hotline, which is mostly staffed by my good self, is there for you. Any queries or questions you've got, you can call or you can email, or you can do both. And we provide up to 15 minutes free advice per issue per day. And it has to be said, for quite a lot of the queries that we get, that is absolutely fine. And then if any more, we've got a big discounted rate for you. And it's there to provide you and those in your organizations that deal with people issues a really super service where you get someone old and slightly grizzled like myself who's seen it all, been there, done it all, giving you a really quick and an expert view. So some of you do use it, and I encourage you to do more. You may have someone in your team who does HR or does the people stuff, but encourage them to use me more, because it's generally a free service, and it'd be great to work with you. And the more the merrier. So there's questions. Questions can be asked also today. I'll be hanging around afterwards if you've got any queries. Anyone that needs sacking or whatever, then that's always part of the service. This is a picture of my telephone, which is on my desk next to my ink stand and quill. And I'm sitting there very lonely, because you don't call me. What am I going to do? So make me happy, please. Go on, button. Right. Recently, we've had a whole range of things that have come through the helpline. None of them are particularly unusual, the sorts of range that an employment lawyer will deal with all the time. Some redundancies, although I'm pleased to say, for the sake of you all, not that many, but there are a few. There's over the last, I think, year or so, there's been a sort of a wish to sort of clear away, restructure certain people who you wonder, why are they here? What do they do? And we also found during periods of furlough that when someone's on furlough, again, you think, what actually did they do? We can't remember. So there's been a fair amount of that. Sick leave issues come up again and again. Of course, there are various COVID-flavoured sick leave issues, although I have to say, fewer than I thought there would be. I'm also pleased to say, and this isn't on the slide, but some of you will have spoken to me, and I know it's been mentioned on some of the Zoom calls about people who may find it uncomfortable to come back or may not want to get jabbed or anything. I've got pretty strong views about people that don't have their vaccinations, but I'll tell you that in the bar later. But Chris did check for me. Where are you, Chris? Hi. Chris did check me recently that is it okay to have 2 jabs as a contractual requirement if you're hiring new staff? And absolutely, it is the case. If you want to sack anyone for not getting their jabs, talk to me. But it may well be possible. So I've got a few little topics. This is one which comes up, it's an old favourite, but I thought it's one to wheel out again. I think many of you are old hands in here in saying goodbye to people in a nice way. And those who've got less than 2 years service, of course, for the most part, you're pretty safe from an unfair dismissal claim. But there have been quite a few things that have come across my desk recently. It's just a good reminder that although the general rule is that if you've not got 2 years service, then you can let them go without any repercussions in terms of unfair dismissal. There are a few rights or a few claims that do come in at day 1 of employment. And I think claimants are getting more sophisticated. The internet is getting more full of useful guides. I think there are more claimant lawyers out there looking for extra ways to help people. So if anyone's blown the whistle, that's reported a concern about health and safety or environment or law or breach of a legal requirement or something, and then they say that that's why they get elbowed out, then that's a claim they can bring from day 1. And sometimes they will look to see when they've been dismissed under 2 years service, is there any angle they've got there? Did I report something or complain about something? Any sort of other statutory right, employment right, if they sort of asserted it or said, this is not being met, or you're somehow breaching this, and then they can say that their dismissal was as a result of that, as some sort of retaliation, or because you didn't like them anymore as a result, then again, that could be an unfair dismissal claim that could win with only technically a day's service. And then there's other things, health and safety issues, trade union activity, pregnancy, maternity, and so on. So there are a few that can creep in. Also, ACAS have got a disciplinary code where if you're dismissing someone because of anything to do with their conduct or their performance, then there is a basic set of process or basic process you need to go through, which is including having a meeting, explaining what's going on, offering the right of appeal, and technically the right to be accompanied by a colleague or a union rep. And it's getting more and more wise to follow that basic process. There was a time when you'd bring them in, you'd say, right, your face doesn't fit here anymore, off you go, here's your P45. Nowadays, it's best to give them a couple of days' notice and then say, this is a meeting at which I'm going to discuss with you my intention to dismiss, have you got anything to say? And then you get rid of them, and then you say you have the right to appeal. So it doesn't involve a lot more, but it will help protect you. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute, there's the risk of what I'm calling hidden disability claims, where after they've been dismissed, they suddenly find out that they were disabled, which of course could cause a discrimination risk. And that is something which is coming up more and more at the moment. So much so that I've really put a slide up here. So the rise of disability claims. Disability claims 2 years ago, I think, went up by something like 37%, and last year went up by another 29%. Partly, it's to do with people understanding more about mental impairments, including things I'll talk about in a minute in terms of neurodiversity and so on. Partly, people are obviously still not well, and the general population who is not well in some particular way is growing. To do with poor diet, to do with stress, anxiety, and all sorts of other aspects. We're getting more sick as a nation, and more things are turning into disabilities. And people are increasingly finding that they were disabled after they have been dismissed. And then there's the argument about, well, did the employer know, and could there be a disability discrimination angle to do with their dismissal? And even if the employer didn't know, did the employer know facts that should have reasonably caused it to go and get a medical report, and then it would have found out? So this sort of roundabout way of knowledge. And I've got 3 cases at the moment that I'm fighting for employers on this subject, where a few weeks after dismissal, the employee went and got a diagnosis of something. In 2 cases, they were things to do with autism or autism spectrum disorder, ASD. And then they said, well, the employer sort of knew that I struggled with this, and they should have got a medical report or a psychiatric report or a psychology report, and then they would have treated me differently, and then they wouldn't have dismissed me. So we're fighting nasty claims from something that at the time of the dismissal didn't seem to be there. So if you've got a relationship or a person who you are not happy with, it's always worth using that 15-minute free advice call in which we can just go through the details and I can just check a few things. And if there's any concerns, we can just press pause on your plan and just make a few checks. And it takes me on to neurodiversity. I'm here to talk about employment law rather than psychology, but it's becoming more and more clear, both to myself and to researchers and so on, just how many of us have a neurodiversity condition. Around 17% of us have one of the things on this slide, which is going to be quite a few of us in this room. And it could be something like dyslexia, or it could be something more to do with autism spectrum disorders, which is the whole spectrum of range of impact on us. But it is becoming more and more clear that a lot of us don't know it. Very, very high-functioning individuals. And we look at people like Elon Musk and so on who've got ADHD and autism. And, of course, there are many other examples as well. We think probably Charles Darwin. We think Mozart, Beethoven, Leonardo da Vinci, it's been suggested. Very, very high-functioning, incredible geniuses. But they had the incredible focus through one of these neurodiverse conditions to create their genius. So in terms of the workplace, it does increasingly, the more I read up on it, the more I get trained on it, seem to turn up in terms of fallings out. Quite often people not liking to be managed. And one of the things that both those who are in the autism spectrum disorder and ADHD find harder to do than others is to be told what to do and to be narrowed down and limited and stood over and micromanaged. They also like to be left alone to do things in their own way. And of course, that's not always possible, as I'm sure you would agree with me. And so I find that a lot of fallings out and performance warnings and conduct warnings and eventually dismissals, I think could have some neurodiversity background to it. In the old days, we just wouldn't have known it at all, probably, and now we're just starting to. And what I don't want you to happen is for you to have one of your team fall out with a subordinate, the relationship goes sour, there's a dismissal, and then it turns out that person had a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, and you find yourself in the tribunal. So again, another reason to just talk to your friendly employment lawyer on the SPA helpline, and also just be a little bit more open to, if someone's a little bit odd, they might be neurodiverse, neurodivergent, and it's worth bearing in mind. So that's that. Another medical issue is the menopause. And I know that most of you in this room are very, very, very well aware of the menopause and will have been struggling, possibly, or will have known someone who has sailed through it, because the menopause affects women in a huge number of ways, generally from mid-40s and 50 or 51 years old is the absolute prime time for menopause. Many women will sail through it fine, many women will not at all be fine, and when that turns up in terms of reduced performance, reduced concentration, and other aspects of work, again, it's another hidden aspect which we're now just starting to realize. So if you have middle-aged female members of staff who for some reason aren't performing as normal, aren't behaving as normal, relationships are falling down, attendance is worse, it's really worth thinking about, is there anything to do here with the menopause that I need to be careful of? Now, I know that you'll be quite sensitive, and I use the word sensitive rather than terrified of mentioning it, so you'll need to be subtle, and you'll need to think about, are you the best person to raise it? But just have it as an extra element of thought here, because it may well be that the member of staff either knows all about it, or is sensitive to it, or knows nothing about it, and might be grateful for you as an employer thinking about it. But as workforces get older, it's well worth bearing in mind that with middle-aged female employees, and I'm thinking roughly from the sort of 45 to 55 age band, if there's a marked change in the way they conduct themselves at work, or their performance, or their attitudes, or whatever, then it could be something to do with menopause. And from a legal point of view, there's potential for age discrimination, sex discrimination, and or disability discrimination. Okay, that's a lot of discriminations that you really don't want to be dealing with. Trust me. So again, use the helpline if you've got any concerns, and we can see how you can deal with it in a sensitive way. So it's really Luke's medical casebook today, I know, but there's lots of stuff happening at the moment. And then very briefly, and I'm going to finish in a moment, it's another reminder of workplace mediation being a great way of keeping you out of the tribunal. As an organisation, I'm pleased that you don't tend to have too many disputes. I think one of the benefits of that is that you have fairly small businesses that tend to work together fairly well. Any hollow laughter? And you also tend not to be unionised, which I think tends to keep the difficulties down. But where you do have problems, again, I'll be recommending strongly that if you've got relationships that fall apart, particularly, that workplace mediation can be a very, very easy, quick and low-cost way of solving things. You then won't need to go to the lawyers, because lawyers don't need more work, and we don't need more lawyers or more litigation. What we need is more peace and harmony, and people getting on with doing their job and letting you get on with doing your job, rather than having to deal with disputes and complaints and grievances and so on. So I'll just remind you there. Again, talk to me if you've got any requests for more advice, or just if things blow up in the workplace. Hopefully I'm not too bad on time, Mr. Boss, Sir Tim, sir. There we go. Use me. Use me thoroughly. Use me regularly. And I'll see you in the bar afterwards.